Good morning. Hey, I see your message. I know you just got here. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it about let's get this show on the road because I know you just got here. And you know, oh shit. I'm not recording. All right. You know what? I'm going to bag that. Do it a different way. I know you, son. I know you. But that's okay. I'm glad you're here. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Caden's podcast, aka Book Club, where I read a book and I talk about it every week, and then I talk about the key points from the book that I caught, and it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. I post the blog, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. I post the podcast live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook under Caden's Podcast Monday mornings, 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, because we get the fuck after it. I've gotten into the habit of listening to Mr. Joey Diaz, his little Monday morning motivation snippet I found on YouTube Shorts, I think. Because who watches YouTube Shorts? So I found it there, and he, anyway, pumps me up. It's Monday, cocksuckers. If you don't wake up with the taste of blood in your mouth, he's awesome. Everybody's smoking marijuana in the middle of them, bright and early. So I do the podcast early Monday mornings, and then I post it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts afterwards. And you can listen to it anytime there under Caden's Podcast. And then I write in a blog called Caden's Blog. Hey, I'm so original. The blog is under cadenkellysblog.wordpress.com / nope, no slash. That's it. cadenkellysblog.wordpress.com. But I also do Substack under Caden. I think it's cadenkelly.substack.com. That's secondary. I post everything to WordPress and then copy and paste to Substack. And I only do that because my mom told me to post to Substack because she says that's where all the writers go. So, whatever. I like WordPress, but I write once a week. I tried to do twice a week. I like to write. When I write, I get really excited, and I love putting my thoughts down and explaining and trying to explain my thoughts in concise ways that are easy to read, easy to understand. It's very challenging. It takes a lot of time, and I've engaged in a couple other activities. So I've cut my twice a week writing to once a week, and now I make TikToks and podcasts and TikToks and Instagram things, but I don't post the YouTube Shorts because I don't know. I don't even know I don't know who uses YouTube Shorts. So, but I should because it's just another place. But I also should just get a manager to do all of it for me, or an assistant. I mean, I should get my personal assistant for $7 an hour. Isn't that right? Who wrote that book? It was the Christian guy on finance. He wrote that book about anyway. But an assistant would be awesome for things like that because I spend, I like to make and edit the content, but then I got to post it and I got to do all the marketing. It wasn't E-Myth. It was not the 4-Hour Work Week. It was 80/20 by I don't remember his name. Enough about Substack. I need some motivation. Okay, hold your horses. All right? You can't rush motivation. It sounds like you're already motivated. So take it easy. Now let's exercise some patience. I got to fill these first 15 minutes with some bullshit. You know how it goes. I got to warm everybody up. I got to warm up my vocal. I've been up for 3 hours. I've talked more now than I have in the last 3 hours because I wake up and I go to the gym and I don't talk to anybody at the gym because you shouldn't go to the gym to socialize. You should go to the gym to suffer. To suffer. So this is the first time I've talked all day. So I got to warm it up, baby. I got to get the juices flowing. I got my brain juices flowing. And I want to make sure all my content is getting out there because this is the only marketing that I do for my shit. I do the podcast, the blog, and I make little 60-second inspirational clips that focus on the books that I read. The blog is more just about a critical thinking exercise for me to work out my thoughts, my beliefs, and all of that. But the shorts are okay. Goddamn. All right, bro. All right. At least we're on the same page. Good morning. Hey, I know you don't drink coffee. What do you drink in the morning? Do you get a Monster? Like first, when you wake up, do you crack a cold one? Do you crack a cold Monster, or do you just shove some water, splash some water on your face? What do you do in the mornings? I got some coffee right here. Time to enjoy. So that's all my shit. I spend, and then I don't want to spoil the book yet. I was going to spend some time, I was excited to spend this week to start running because I've got a Spartan race coming up in May 7th, I believe, in Montana, which will be a good time. So May 7th, got Spartan. I got to get ready for it. It started snowing yesterday, which is good because we need snow in the wintertime. But then doesn't spring start like March 1st? So it shouldn't be snowing anymore. Just get the snow out while it's wintertime. And then what else? So then I started a diet. I started the carnivore-ish diet. We talk about, let's see. I crack a cold Red Bull because I would like to die young. You should try, if you do drink energy drinks in the morning, you should try Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Zoa energy drink. It's like a high 7s, low 8s on flavor. I think Red Bull's flavor is still a little better. It's high 7s, low 8s on flavor, and it doesn't taste like the white Monster that tastes like a Fresca. That one's probably the best flavor energy drink available. But this one, the Dwayne the Rock Johnson's Zoa, is I'm gonna plug his energy drink because it's all natural as an energy drink can get, right? But that's his shtick. Plus, if The Rock drinks it, I'll drink it. Whatever The Rock does, I do. Because if he looks the way he does and is as successful as he is, I will do anything that he does. I will do anything he does. So you should try it. Zoa, ZOA. It's not in. It's only in a few gas stations that I stop by on my routes. It's not everywhere yet, but you can get it on Amazon or something. You can find it. You can find it most places. Red Bulls are good though. So, and I only drink those. I only drink those on crazy work days. Anyway, yeah, I started the carnivore-ish diet, Paul Saladino's diet. People hear carnivore and they think I'm a monster because I'm only eating meat. But I'll tell you what, I've listened to a lot of content recently about diet that I haven't spent much time talking about, and I've wanted to try doing something in this regard because I've talked about Liver King. He does a carnivore-ish diet as well. Basically, the diet is mostly meat. It also includes meat includes muscle tissue and organs like liver, heart, testicles, spleen. Those are the big ones I think that they are at least talking about eating all the time. Then they also eat a lot of bone marrow. And what else? Okay, so that's mostly meat. Horn to hoof animal and then they besides that, raw dairy products like raw milk and raw cheese, honey, and then a wide variety of fruits. I think the Liver King, he eats potatoes and rice. He gets carbs from potatoes and rice. That motherfucker works. He, if you follow him or know anything about Liver King, he does so much shit. So he eats, but Carnivore MD stays away from potatoes and rice and just eats the meats, fruit, bone marrow, raw dairy, raw honey. And that's what I've started doing. So for the last 8 days I've had I eat the same thing. I eat eggs and an avocado for breakfast, which is probably the best breakfast that anybody can ask for. I have 3 eggs and a half an avocado. It's insane. It's an insane, and some sea salt. I do that. I have some jerky to snack on for lunch, and then I come home and have some steak and a lot of fruit. Oh, it's so good. So good. The fruit that I eat mostly right now, whatever I can get since nothing's really in season. A lot of cantaloupe, honeydew, blueberries, that none of it's really in season. So sometimes it's it's not always the best, but I got some watermelon yesterday. The watermelon was pretty good. And blueberries and grapes. A lot of blueberries and grapes, really. So all with the intention to cut a few pounds, get ready for summertime, get ready for these races, trim down a little, get lean. Also, cannot let mashed potatoes get leaner than me ever again. So cutting down for that, also with the intention to enhance my performance at the races. So I'm burning extra calories with the intention to trim down, and then once I get down to a healthy weight where I'm lean and strong, maintain, get strong, run races, kick ass. So that's where we're at. Cut out bullshit ingredients. See, I think the diet is so funny. So I listened to a debate yesterday with Saladino and another distinguished gentleman who was just arguing against carnivore diet. This debate was also 3 years ago, and Saladino's position has changed since. So at that time, he was just carnivore. Now he does the fruit and the honey and dairy. And when I say carnivore, I mean muscle tissue and organs and bone marrow. That's carnivore. And anyway, I think what's so fascinating about diet is it's such a sensitive topic for people to talk about. Even for me, who doesn't know shit about it. Nobody wants to be told that they shouldn't be eating what they should, or that they should be eating something else, because we like what we like, and humans are insanely versatile creatures. We can survive off of just about anything. We could survive is the key word. And Saladino says if you want to thrive, these are the best foods to eat. These are the most nutrient dense and are most absorbed, are the they're digested by the body the easiest, whatever. I sent Mashed Potatoes that podcast with the two other dietitians, nutritionists from a Rogan episode. Let's see, I'll pull it up. It was another good one. Some controversial conversation, and Mashed Potatoes, he thought it was a little tinfoil hatty, and that's fine. There was some, I think they talk more about the issues with corn and soy production in the U.S. and conspiracies. Like, you didn't mention anything specific, but they talk about some of the reasons why maybe government advocates for certain diets, whatever, little conspiracy, but it's just open conversation, and whether you think it's baloney or not, there's a lot of good information from their conversation. Episode 1784, Diana Rogers and Rob Wolf. Diana is a registered dietitian, nutritionist. Rob Wolf is a former research biochemist. And they do podcasts, and they just made a little documentary, The Sacred Cow. So there you have it. Those are a couple. Excuse me, couple things on diet that I've been doing work on, and they're worth mentioning because, like I did really early in this podcast series, I did a episode on Mark Sisson's book Primal Blueprint, and that had like 12 primal tenets, and one of them was about diet. And his case is Whole Foods. He's no, he's not the inventor. Oh yeah. I think he opened Whole Foods grocery store. Mark Sisson, I think. And he advocates for just not processed crap. Don't eat processed crap. But so he talks about whole grains and vegetables, different kinds of vegetables to eat. And again, Saladino is saying that he's not saying that vegetables are bad for you. He's saying that fruit and meat are better than vegetables. And there's reasons that he believes why you shouldn't eat vegetables, like corn and soy especially. But he doesn't say that. He doesn't say vegetables are bad. Just like fast food is bad. That's not the argument. He's just saying if you want to reclaim your health and thrive, these are the best foods to eat. All right, that's the case, and that's it. And then it's touchy to talk about food because there's so many opinions, and even in that debate with Saladino and the gentleman yesterday, he deserves some recognition. Let me find his name. Even in that conversation yesterday, these two extremely intelligent fellows, Layne Norton, Layne Norton, versus Paul Saladino. Both very distinguished, educated men in nutrition. I think Layne Norton was a researcher, and Paul Saladino is a clinician. So most of their debate was like distinguishing evidence or distinguishing information, because Saladino uses lots of clinical hands-on stories, and Lane uses what do you call them? What did he? Shit. What was the? It's like big group studies, basically. Let's see if I can find it. Meta-analysis. A meta-analyses. So which are a group of studies together, and you get the overall data. And then, yeah, Saladino just deals with person to person and their experiences. All right, that's enough about diet. But I will say, final thing, if you can just eat better food. Just eat better food. Just eat better food. That's it. Just eat better food. You'll feel better. The last 7 days, I've slept better than I have in a long time. Much, much better sleep. I wake up feeling refreshed. I sleep all night long. I'm also working hard every day, so I go to bed pretty tired. I sleep all night. I'm not tossing and turning. My stomach feels light. I'm also in a cut, so I'm not, I don't have a full stomach all the time, but I don't wake up feeling groggy. I wake up feeling refreshed and a little hungry, ready to fucking get after it. Like, it's Monday morning, cocksuckers, just like Joey Diaz says. So just eat better food. That's it. Just eat better food. And, maybe drink more water and less bullshit, less soda, less sugar, less processed everything. Less processed everything. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to talk about the book now, baby. Yeah, we're not stopping. I read last week, Viktor E. Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. This was one on my list for a very long time. And for those of you who do not know Viktor Frankl, he is a Holocaust survivor, psychiatrist, and this book was harrowing. He shares his experience like it's no big deal. The book is broken down into 2 parts. The first part is his experience in the concentration camp in Auschwitz and elsewhere. And then the second part is his theory of logotherapy, L-O-G-O therapy. Let me pull it up, and I'll get you a good definition of logotherapy. But we'll talk about it. Got to get rid of my Valorant lineups. Let's see. Got to expand this window a little bit. Get the whole picture. Logotherapy this is from Wikipedia. Logotherapy was developed by neurologist and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, more than just a psychiatrist, and is based on the premise that the primary motivational force of an individual is to find meaning in life. I'll read it one more time. Logotherapy was developed by neurologist and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl and is based on the premise that the primary motivational force of an individual is to find a meaning in life. Frankl describes it as the third Viennese school of psychotherapy. Viennese, Viennese, along with Freud's psychoanalysis, along with Freud's psychoanalysis and Adler's individual psychology. It's astonishing to consider the things that he says, this theory that he's developed from a man who came from a concentration camp. I don't know. Does it give a little bio of Frankl in here? Again, I listened to the book, so I want to do the man justice. Oh, let's see. Here's a picture. Shoot. No. I'll Google a description of the book. It has several publications too. It's been posted several times. So let's see. Viktor Frankl bio. Here's a quick one. On the right-hand side from Wikipedia, Viktor Frankl was an Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, philosopher, author, and Holocaust survivor. He was the founder of logotherapy, a school of oh well, that doesn't do anything more. I want to do the book. Oh, not him. I'm sorry. No, I'm gonna just fucking talk about the book. All right, I'm sorry. So let's talk about it. Keep in mind, this man through the experienced the Holocaust and survived it. And he talks about why he thinks he survived it when so many others did not. Here's some coffee. Hold on. It's deep. I want to pay this man the respect that he deserves, and all of those in the Holocaust. It's just I'm sitting here in my house in the Utah, USA, in a comfy place, and there's a war going on right now over in Ukraine, and I'm over here talking about Holocaust. I mean, this is such a privileged place for me to be. We're so lucky and fortunate to be. I lived my whole life without serious conflict, right? No war, no racism, no oppression, no prejudice. I'm a straight white male in Utah, USA. So I speak from a completely a place of privilege. It's weird to talk about shit like this, but it's very inspiring, and it helps everybody find meaning. I think it's so funny. He's like, he doesn't say this, but I can imagine after surviving the Holocaust, after he was liberated and back on his feet, he went into psychiatry practice and had clients, and I can just imagine, I don't know who went to see him, but people showing up to see him and having issues with their spouse or with their job, or they're depressed. And he's like, well, I went through the Holocaust, right? I was in Auschwitz. I did that. It's not a, we're not comparing dicks at all, but it's like, he's probably experienced the worst thing a human could experience, right? But then he's here trying to explain that everybody can find meaning, and that the worst thing that you're experiencing is still the worst thing that you're experiencing. And it feels like shit. It sucks. So, I'm humbled. I'm really humbled by the book, by his message, and anyway, his message is worth sharing. I'm gonna get some coffee. I'm gonna recenter, and we're gonna talk. All right. Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl. Let's see. In the preface. He takes that Nietzsche quote. He repeats the Nietzsche quote lots of times. Friedrich Nietzsche's quote. He who has a why can bear almost anyhow. He who has a why can bear almost anyhow. That's that's the theme of the book, and that's the theme to life, to overcoming any kind of adversary. If you have a why, and getting through this tribulation will bring you closer to your why, then anyhow is, you can overcome anyhow. He repeats it many times. I took a paraphrase from him. In fact, I think I didn't take any direct quotes. I think I paraphrased. Oh yeah, there's a couple. Mostly paraphrased. The more you aim for success, the more you'll miss it. Happiness and success are not a destination, but yet ensue as a byproduct of surrender to uncontrollable external events. Man, I got to figure out how to get these notes right when I write them. Happiness and success are not a destination, but yet ensue as a byproduct of surrender to uncontrollable external events. So, yes, happiness is and success are not a destination. This is like the means goal versus end goal conversation. Happiness and success are not end goals. You can't they are experienced along the journey. Happiness and success. They They ensue. They are a byproduct of surrendering to uncontrollable external events, and we'll talk about the difference between uncontrollable and controllable external events. So yeah, happiness, and they're not specific metrics to measure. I think Brene Brown talks about in that book, Dare to Lead, that we just read, talked about how part of her goal is to make the world a better place. But how do you measure make the world a better place, right? Make the world a better. That's her end goal. But that's not specific enough. You can't make that a goal. So making the world a better place is something that you do step by step. That is ensued through the process and by surrendering to uncontrollable external events, like a war breaks out in the East. Those are so you surrender to that uncontrollable external event, but you can still help. You can still provide help in whatever ways you can think of, and in that way you've become successful and you've reached your goal. You've made the world a better place, but it's not over, right? That's not the end. That's on the way to what? So that's those are the 2 points I took from his preface. The quote and happiness, the more you aim for success, the more you'll miss it. It's about surrendering to uncontrollable external events today. All right. Part 1. Experiences in a concentration camp. And to be honest, I didn't take direct experiences. I didn't rewrite his experiences. I took the lessons that he learned from the experiences. If you want to hear the experiences the things that he saw and went through, you should read the book. You should read you should read the books that I talk about that are exciting or stimulating for you or interesting, because they are because that will just it satiates whatever kind of. If you want to hear about what he went through, read the book. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to talk about the lessons that he learned along. He says, sometimes what hurts more than the literal physical pain is the mental agony of the unreasonableness of it. He uses that to paint in contrast to raising kids or having pets. What hurts more than literal physical pain, being hit or tortured, is the mental agony of the unreasonableness of it. If you have kids or if you have pets and you're trying to raise them or whatever, or partner, and or friend, and I guess it could be any relationship really. If you are miserable towards them, worse than the misery is not knowing why you're causing that misery, is what he says. And I can see that too. I can understand that. If somebody were to be rude to me and I could say, well, it's because I did this or said this and I probably deserved it, or I didn't deserve it. I'd never said that. Or if someone, was rude to me and I was like, where the hell did that come from? And it was someone I cared about and they were continually rude to me. So sometimes worse than the physical pain is the mental agony and unreasonableness of it. The kind of person the inmate became is the result of some inner decision and not the result of camp influence alone. The inmate became the result of some inner decision. This had a lot to do with how he described life or death as an inmate. You either succumbed to the misery of it, and your body and your mind deteriorated, or you found remained as resilient as you could internally, and withstood the torture and the punishments. Something that he explained was this rationing of food and cigarettes because people, a lot they smoked back in the day, back in the old day, and he says because food was so scarce, such a rarity, people would trade their cigarettes for food, for more food, and when you saw somebody smoking, you knew they had given up. They had just given up on life. They didn't have the resilience to withstand the tortures anymore. So, um, yeah, that was it was, and he says they could determine with pretty close accuracy the people who were on their way out. I guess you kind of can see stuff like that as a psychiatrist. I think he was a practicing psychiatrist before he went into, uh, before he was taken as a prisoner. So he was able to notice behaviors and things like that. Oh, and part of his deep why to make it through the Holocaust was he had a manuscript for a book, and I don't know if it was for this book or if it was for one of his other books, but he said when they took him, they took his manuscript, and he was devastated by it. But instead of being defeated by it, he decided that he had to survive, so he could rewrite the manuscript, rewrite the book, and through the misery of the Holocaust, he ended up rewriting most of the manuscript from memory in Auschwitz. So, yeah, it's the kind of person the inmate became is the result of some inner decision and not the result of camp influence alone. He says life is meaningful and purposeful when you remain resilient through your suffering. Quote, if there is a meaning to life, there must be a meaning to suffering. How many times have I talked about suffering? He says it so beautifully how just like this. If there is a meaning to life, then there is a meaning to suffering. So much of my life, in my short 26 years, and then even really the last 10 years of actual being able to think about my life and decisions in my life, has been spent trying to avoid suffering and avoid discomfort and avoid things that aren't pleasant really, and to seek pleasures, to seek comfort. It's the exact opposite of what the Stoics preach, of what psychiatrists teach. If there's a meaning to life, there is a meaning to suffering, and almost all suffering. We'll talk about some suffering. We'll talk about other forms of suffering that are unnecessary, but suffering, like in this circumstances for Frankel, this was an uncontrollable external event. He had no he was taken as a prisoner against his will, and he remained resilient, as as you're able to in a concentration camp. And he talks about his weaknesses and where his shortcomings, his cognitive changes that made him become less humane. Oh, and he was very specific in some parts. I should have written them down. He talks about the psychological changes people experience under immense amounts of stress. Something like that. You basically become dehumanized, and the way you view people's suffering. Like he talked about towards the end of his time in the camp, he was a doctor taking care of patients with typhus, and he says there were people. Actually, I think this experience happened before he was a doctor, but someone had dropped dead, and instead of people being sad or scared of a dead person, they would take shit out of his pockets, or take the shoelaces, or rip off pieces of clothing, or look for bread, or take his cigarettes. With no remorse for the dead person. It dehumanized you, and he says he experienced the same things. Yeah, wow, it's just so harrowing, the whole experience. But he says if there's a meaning to life, then there's a meaning to suffering, and I suppose we'll talk more about the meaning to suffering later on when we talk about logotherapy. But life is not about avoiding suffering. It's about enduring suffering with resilience. It's about enduring uncontrollable suffering, like the suffering that you can't get rid of. When you're if you're a resident in Ukraine and you're being invaded by another country, there's nothing you can do to control that experience. So remaining resilient through your suffering is that is the meaning of life. Is Oh, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll keep going. Suffering ceases to be suffering as soon as we paint a clear and precise picture of it. And he was quoting someone else. I did not get the name. Suffering ceases to be suffering as soon as we paint a clear and precise picture of it. Yep. If you are experiencing an uncontrollable external event that causes suffering, and you either succumb to it, and you succumb to it, and or you discover the meaning behind it, and you become stronger to bear it. I'm getting reminders of Ryan Holiday's courage. It takes courage to have resilience through suffering. To look at suffering in the face and say, oh, I'm stronger than you, or I'm better than you, I can endure you. And it also takes courage to say, I am resilient, and this is going to kill me. And he says there were people that had resilience and courage in the concentration camps and still died. So many people. He talks about so many close calls where he was supposed to be a part of one group, but instead ended up a part of the other group, and this whole group got sent to a gas chamber. Or he was, or like how he had missed a line, or someone had pulled him out of a line or something, and then everybody in front of them got sent to another camp or killed, or just like crazy, very close call experiences. Where he's like, I should have died. There's several times where he should have died, and or where he knew he was going to die, but then something happened, or something changed, and he just was saved by grace. And all uncontrollable. Nothing in that. For those people that did die in those horrendous encounters, you can still be courageous and resilient through them, and that's the meaning, right? It's the meaning of suffering isn't to overcome suffering; it's to remain resilient and courageous through it, either to death or either through it. So, because you can't control everything that happens to you. Again, coming from a white, straight, 26-year-old male in Utah, USA, with just never having experienced anything close to the kind of oppression that exists in the world today. This was 70 years ago, but even in the world today, the amounts of oppression that people still experience, it's all so humbling. Anyway. Hope was killed when men would dream of a liberation day, like Christmas, or like being liberated by Christmas or by the New Year. And when that liberation day came and they were not free, they succumbed to the tortures and died. The remedy, he says, is not what to expect out of life. The remedy, he says, is not what to expect out of life, but to ask what life expected out of us, or expects out of us. The remedy is not what to expect out of life, like what is life going to give me. The remedy is, what is life asking from me? Not what is life. It's like, what did JFK say? Ask not what you can do for your country, but ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, right? I'm so patriotic today, baby. I'm so patriotic. It's the same thing about life. Don't wonder what life is going to give you. Ask yourself, what is life asking from me? What is life asking from me? What are the things that are not, what is out of my control? What is it asking from me to endure, to experience, or to do, to accomplish, to achieve? not to say what is life going to give me? What are the things that life is going to give me? So that's how you maintain hope. And so you contemplate those things, you consider them, you understand them, and then you endure them or you work after them. Furthermore, instead of relying on false optimism, embrace that suffering is a normal part of life, and he who bears it well is victorious. Again, victory does not look like liberation from suffering. Victory in suffering can look like death. And for most people in the Holocaust, it looked like death, victory through suffering. But it's just an extreme. It's a very extreme example. You can endure your suffering today, whatever it is, and endure it well, and you become victorious through it. Instead of acting emotionally or compulsively because of your suffering, remaining calm and concise, cognitively, and rationally, patiently, being patient through suffering. It's so hard to do, but that's where victory comes. False optimism is saying it's kind of like saying, I'm in school now. I hate my life. Life will be better when school is over. I've felt that, in my mediocre suffering. I felt the shit of not wanting to go to school and saying when this semester's over, life will be better. I'll feel better. I'll be happier. And then or like summer sales. I did summer sales just every day, waking up, fuck, and just one more. Once the summer's over, once I can go home, I'll be happy. And I guess to be fair to myself, I was happy through school. I was happy through work. But just the experience just sucked, and I hate comparing my experience with school to Holocaust survivors' experience. But I guess it's all I got, right? And that's what some people all they have is what they have. So I could use my parents' divorce, or I could use hard breakups, relationships, or just whatever, just the hard shit that I've experienced, the little of it. Instead of saying, "Oh, once this is over, I'll feel better or I'll be happy." No, the point is, you're experiencing something shitty now, and you should find resilience. I keep using that word resilience, but I think that is such a powerful, and I think it's a virtue. I'll call it a virtue. Resilience and courage through suffering, because that's where you find meaning. And I kind of had an experience like that while I was in Chicago when I was doing summer sales. I did I sucked at the job and couldn't catch a groove. I worked just as hard as everybody else. You start knocking at 9 and you knock until 9. And anyway. So I worked really hard. I just didn't have very good success. And I think that my approach, I didn't like the way other people approached the door sales, because it's not dishonest. It's just manipulative. You're kind of convincing everybody that you have you have something that they need, and you have to convince them that they need it. It's sales. It's all just sales. And you got to, they're like, I don't need pest control. And then you tell them why they need pest control. And they're like, I still don't need it. And you're like, well, just do it, and I'll save you $100 on the service. Or I don't know. It just seems manipulative to me. So I just didn't stoop to that. And I knocked on a lot of doors, and I looked for the people who were like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about pest control. And then I helped those people out. So I made I sold just very little. But I will say my retention rate was very high. Like, I had the most followed through services per capita, right? Because I only had a few. But I had because the people that I found were like, I actually need this, or I've actually been considering this. So, and I kind of was the same way on my mission too. I just looked for the people who were soul searching and religion searching and wanted to talk about God, and I wasn't trying to convince a lot of people that they needed God because is, I don't know, manipulative. Mash Potato says, I just finished 5 years of tests and school and apprenticeship, and I feel a lot better now that I'm done. Like a huge weight is lifted. I think things can get better, but you have to learn how to be happy when things are more challenging. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, to be fair, when those hard things are over, it's very relieving. It's very relieving. I guess I guess what I'm trying to say is it's like a sense of meaning or purpose or happiness, like you said, while the hard thing is happening. Because if you're in school, like if you're going through 5 years of all of that crap, and you're like, my life sucks, I'm not happy, I'm depressed, and my spouse thinks that I'm an asshole, and whatever, like my friends think I'm an asshole, and I'll be a better person. I'll have more purpose. I'll have meaning when this is over. I think the point is, you can have meaning and purpose in the suffering or in the hardship, and it just takes embracing it. And school's kind of a funny one because you don't have to go to school. I didn't finish school. And I think now if I were to go back, if I meant it, I would do really well. And I have a completely different mindset about school, so I could go back and have a really good attitude. I'd work really hard and it would be stressful, but again, yeah, I would have a much better attitude than I did when I went 5 years ago. But yeah, that's the point. Like you were never unpleasant to be around when you were going to school. And I don't know what your home life was like, but if you're like, my home life will be better, like my wife will like me more. I'll be less of an asshole when school is over. That's not the point. The point is you can be better now. You can be happier now through the suffering. Is that fair? Is that fair to say? So, that's part 1. Part 2, logotherapy in a nutshell. I'm going to get a little bit more coffee. Oh, yeah. All right. Quote, mental health is based on a certain date of tension. Date? God damn, is that right? Mental health is based on a certain date of tension between what one has achieved and what one will accomplish. I think that's right. We should not be afraid to challenge men with meaning to fulfill. Invoke meaning through their state of latency. Man, these aren't making sense in my head. Latency means the state of existing, but not yet being developed or manifest. Concealment. Mental health is based on a certain date of tension between what one has achieved and what one will accomplish. We should not be afraid to challenge men with meaning to fulfill. Invoke meaning through their state of latency. Okay, if I'm going to break that down, you invoke meaning through their state of latency. Invoke meaning through their laziness, right? Man, I'm going to move on. What man needs is not homeostasis, but struggle and suffering to fulfill or overcome for meaning. He uses homeostasis, which if you, I've heard a lot about homeostasis since I'm dating a future nurse. For those of you who don't know what homeostasis is, it is the tendency toward a relatively stable equilibrium between interdependent elements, especially as maintained by physiological processes. So, if you get a cold, you have runny nose, sneeze, cough. Ow! Just hit my freaking face with my phone. It slipped. Ow! My jaw. You get cold, fever, chills, cough, whatever, and you're out of homeostasis, and your body is working to fight the cold and you feel like shit, maybe you're fatigued, and you relax, you recover, and then after a few days, you're back to normal. And when you're back to normal, you're in homeostasis. And this happens psychologically as well. When you are in no form of struggle, you are in mental struggle, you're in homeostasis. So when you're going to school and you are studying and you're reading and you're talking and you're writing all the time and you're doing homework and whatever, when you're challenging your brain, you are out of homeostasis. You're struggling and suffering. And this helps you fulfill like he says, fulfill or overcome for meaning. I think Jordan Peterson talks about how I think Jordan Peterson kind of talks about this, how when you're writing, you're stimulating your brain and it's exhausting. And the reason we don't like to write or read is because it takes energy. Literally, like exercising takes energy, writing and reading take mental energy. When you sit or focus on consuming information, you're stimulating your brain and it's exhausting. So most people shy away from it and they stay in their state of complacency or latency, and they don't develop. And when you stay in that state, you don't grow. So I've talked about the body and the mind being anti-fragile, and what it means to be anti-fragile is if you take an apple and you chop it, like you just shove a knife through it, it's not going to heal. Now that apple is damaged. But humans, if you take a knife and put a knife on your fucking arm, it's damaged, but it heals and it becomes stronger. It becomes calloused and whatever. If you don't fuck it up too bad, I guess you don't cut your arm off. But and then same thing with your immune system. When you get sick, you become weaker, but as your body fights the sickness, your immune system actually becomes stronger than it was before you were sick. So that's what it means to be anti-fragile. Your brain is the same. When you're in homeostasis, you're at ground level, and then when you're consuming information or writing and reading, you're exerting energy, and your ground level comes down. But then maybe it doesn't work the exact same way, but you're exerting energy and it's exhausting to think, but you become better at it over time. Your critical thinking skill doesn't wear you down to nothing. It makes you stronger. It wears you down for a minute, and then it makes you stronger over time. Just like how muscles get bigger when you're lifting weights, you get sore because your muscles are broken, but then when they heal, they become stronger than they were before you lifted. Your brain does the same thing. Does that make sense? That's what it means to be anti-fragile. So man and women, but humans need suffering and struggle to grow, and they need that to find meaning in their life. So don't shy away from suffering and struggle. That's why I try to encourage doing hard shit, because you find meaning. You feel better. You don't feel better while you're doing it. I did a really hard workout this morning, and I was sweating, and I was huffing and puffing. I was tired, and I wanted to cut my exercise short because it was fucking hard. And then afterwards, when I was done and I was panting and laying down, I felt great. Well, not immediately afterwards. I recovered. I put my weights away and shit. I was stretching. And I was driving home, and I felt great. And I made some breakfast, and I'm doing this podcast. I feel great. That's the point. And I'm going to be stronger than I was before I exercised. I'm going to be smarter, hopefully, than I was before I started this podcast. And with every book, I'm going to be smarter with every book. So you develop purpose, you develop meaning through the suffering and through the struggle. That's logotherapy. So he kind of talks about how Freud had clients and take them in, and he had his whole psychoanalysis theory and how to avoid suffering, or how to overcome suffering. But Frankl is like I said, he takes his clients in and they say, "My wife wants to leave me." And he says, why is that happening to you? What are you doing to that makes you feel this way? It's like embracing the suffering and finding the cause of it instead of trying to avoid it. I guess that's a dumb example because I don't know Freud and I don't know what he actually did or preached or said in entirety. I don't even know everything about Frankl. I know Frankl, he painted that illustration in some way. So I'm being facetious, but the point is, logotherapy says embrace the suffering. Why is it happening? And then how are you gonna become better because of it? Because of the suffering. And that's exactly what the Stoics teach. That's what yoga is. The 8 branches of yoga. It's embracing the suffering. It's a very constant theme through these different branches of psychology, of the human experience. Humans thrive when they embrace suffering and find meaning through it and become resilient through it instead of running away from it. When you take your problems head on, or if you at the very least, don't succumb to your suffering, you become stronger from it. You become better from it. We need the suffering and the struggle to improve ourselves. Don't ask what the meaning of life is. Consider you are the one being asked. This is kind of like what I was saying earlier. Each man is questioned by life, and he only, oh fuck, I suck at this. And he is only answered to life for his own life. Only answer, and he can only, maybe that's. Each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his life. You can only respond by being responsible. This is the essence of human existence. Okay, this is this is a critical point. Don't ask what the meaning of life is. Consider you are the one being asked. Life is asking you, what is the meaning? What is the meaning through what you're experiencing? What is the meaning through this shitty or awesome thing that you're experiencing? Stop asking life, what is the meaning? Consider what life is trying to ask of you. Why are you experiencing this? Each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. You can only respond by being responsible. This is the essence of human existence. Being responsible. Being responsible through your suffering. I mean, how many times do I got to say it? It was the theme of the book. Be responsible, be resilient, be courageous, be patient through your suffering. Don't ask why this is happening to me. Consider what life is trying to teach you through your experience. Consider what life is trying to teach you through your experience. What don't you know now that you will learn from this experience? And what have you learned in the past that will help you endure this experience? That's kind of like the anti-fragile thing. So maybe you've never been broken up with before, and you're like, this sucks. I want to kill myself. I don't like this feeling. But then you learn, you get over it, and you have support group, and you find another partner that will help you through it, and you learn that you can survive through that hardship. And whatever. And then that person, you get broken up with again. But now you can go back to you remember the experiences that you had in the past, and I'm not saying that the breakup will be less difficult. Maybe it's just as difficult, if not more difficult. Who's calling me from Alexandria, Virginia? You're interrupting my podcast. Maybe it's more difficult than the first breakup, but now you have tools, you have resources and experience to rely on to help you get through it this time. Maybe and then maybe you get married and you're married for 25 years, and then you go through a divorce and it's even more difficult, but you have the tools and resources to rely on to get you through the hardship. That's anti-fragileness. As long as you're responsible through each hardship, you will become stronger from it. If you have the hardship and you succumb to it, and then it just envelops your life, you don't become stronger. In fact, you become weaker. And then if it happens again, it's going to suck even worse because you don't know what the fuck to do to get out of it. But if you like he says, I'll say it one more time. Each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. You can only respond by being responsible. This is the essence of human existence. That's beautiful. That's so fucking beautiful. You can only respond to life by being responsible for your own life. On a whim, what does it mean to be responsible for your own life? I think it kind of sounds like Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership. The book's about leadership, but I think you apply the same principle to your own life, where you are, just to all the experiences. Like, maybe everything is out of your control, but what can you control? What is in your control? That's Stoicism. I'm sure Marcus Aurelius said it. I'm sure Seneca said it. I'm sure Epictetus said it. I know that Ryan Holiday talks about it all the time when he references these Stoics. And it's the yoga philosophy. It's all of it, right? You can only respond to life by being responsible, or by being irresponsible. And if you want to be responsible, you accept what's in your control and what's not, and you be responsible for the things that you can control. And when you're in a concentration camp, you can't control the suffering and torture that you endure, but you can control your attitude. And he says that. He says that somewhere. I'll probably get to it. He says, even in that situation, you can control your attitude. And just like the men and the women who he said that they came to this place of giving up, not solely because of their experience. It was an inner decision. And your inner decision is your resilience. Your inner decision to say, I am strong enough, I'm capable enough, I can have a good attitude, I can get through this. That's resilience. He talks about how the humor in the, how I mentioned, you become less humane, dehumanized. They became that way through this experience. They also developed an insanely dark humor, and he talks about some of the jokes that they would pass around to each other through the experiences. And it was the people that engaged in the dark humor, they had a better attitude about what was happening to them. Humor, anyway. I love that. That's probably one of the richest pieces of wisdom I've ever heard. And I hear it from Frankl. I've heard it from the Stoics. I've heard it from the yogis. You can only respond to life by being responsible. The true meaning of man is to be discovered in the world instead of in himself or his psyche. The true meaning of man is to be discovered in the world instead of in himself or his psyche. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Discovered in the world? I'm sorry, I don't remember the significance to that. How to discover your meaning. 3 points. Creating a work or doing a deed. Maybe this is exactly what it means. The true meaning of man is to be discovered in the world. How to discover your meaning? By doing a work, by creating a work or doing a deed. By experiencing something or encountering someone, and then by your attitude towards unavoidable suffering. Boom. I think that's it. Those are all external. Those are things that happen in the world. Those are things that those are not things that happen inside. Creating a work or doing a deed, experiencing something or encountering someone, and then your attitude towards unavoidable suffering. That is how you discover meaning. Okay, there's the significance. Just got to keep reading sometimes. Suffering ceases to be suffering in the face of meaning. Again, he says in that first part, suffering ceases to be suffering as soon as we paint a clear and precise picture of it, which is a quote from somebody else. You could find it. You can Google it. I should pay that author their respects. Man's main concern is not to feel pleasure or avoid suffering. It is to find meaning in life, to ensure his suffering has meaning. And to reiterate, part of you see, Frankel went into the concentration, separated from all of his family, and learned afterwards that all of his family died, except for one sister. And I believe he was mid-20s when he went through the Holocaust. He was my age, probably. It sounds like he was my age. In fact, I'm going to Google that because here, born 1905, and then Auschwitz, all of that world part of the World War was early to mid 40s, right? So maybe he was 40. 35, 40. I thought he was younger. 30, 35. Anyway, he was married. His mother died. His father died. All of his siblings died. His wife died, except for one sister. And yet and I don't know if he learned that during during his time in camp or if it was afterwards. But in any case, he talks about how you just expect all of your loved ones to be dead because you consider yourself a dead man. But his purpose was to create the manuscript, to finish the manuscript, write the book, publish this theory that he had. And he says this was part of his meaning through suffering. I need to survive this so I can share my principle, my theories, my wisdoms, all meaningful. So unnecessary suffering, before I move on, man's main concern is not to feel pleasure or avoid suffering. It is to find meaning in life, to ensure his suffering has meaning. Now we're going to talk about the differences in suffering really fast because he talks about this explicitly. Unnecessary suffering is masochistic, not heroic. Suffering is not necessary for meaning. Frankel's point is it is possible to find meaning through suffering. Unnecessary suffering is masochistic, not heroic. Suffering is not necessary for meaning. His point is it is possible to find meaning through suffering. So unnecessary suffering is suffering you can prevent, right? So again, being a victim of the Holocaust is out of your control. Being a victim in the Ukraine is out of your control. Lots of suffering comes due to uncontrollable external events, right? However, I'm just gonna spitball some unnecessary suffering. Let's say you have some kind of disease that you're sick, you have bad health, and whatever, you're obese, or let's say you feel incompetent at your job, or let's say you have shitty relationships, or let's say what else? You are struggling to make ends meet financially, right? The true meaning is considering what's in your control and what's out of your control, and being responsible is taking ownership and control of the things that are in your control. So if you're obese, that contributes to some health problems. You can control that. You can be healthy. You can get health, even if you have my girlfriend has Crohn's and comes with lots of setbacks and things that like food and drink that make her sick. She's responsible for avoiding those things if she wants to be healthy and strong all the time. And then if you have diabetes or some, I don't know, or even cancer, I guess you can take responsibility through the suffering, and show up to your appointments and get the medicine and take the medicine and stop eating the bad food and exercise. Okay, so then there's that. And then if you struggle financially, you're responsible for how you spend your money or how you do at your job, so which contributes to how much money you make. So make financial plans. Learn how to save properly. Learn how to spend properly. You can control how you spend your money. And if you have shitty relationships, take ownership for where you suck in your relationships. If you're impatient, or if you are, um, what's the opposite of that scripture in the Bible, where it's lo- patience, long suffering, hope, whatever. Like, what's the opposite of those, right? If you're the opposite of all the good stuff, take responsibility for it and make changes in your life to be a better person, to be a more pleasant person to be around, and you can shape your relationships that way. So, unnecessary suffering is masochistic, and masochistic is like finding pleasure in pain, right? Deriving sexual gratification from one's own pain or humiliation, right? So unnecessary suffering is masochistic. It's not heroic. It's not heroic. If you put yourself through unnecessary suffering, it's not heroic. Avoid suffering. Avoid suffering that is in your control. Avoid the things that make you a worse person. Avoid those things. Avoid what makes you a worse person. Avoid what causes suffering. And then embrace the suffering that's uncontrollable. Embrace the things that you have no say about, no control over, and learn how you can endure the suffering with resilience and responsibility. Do the right thing. That's how you find meaning. That's meaning. Our search in life for meaning is not it's not straightforward, but there are practical steps that all of us can take to have more fulfilling, satisfying lives. And it comes from what we're talking about. I love all this shit so much. I got a few more notes. Logotherapy is not pessimistic, it is activistic. Pessimists have fear with each passing day and task. The activist takes each day and task head on, right? Again, this is accepting your load. If you hate your daily schedule, you can either be pessimistic towards it. You will have fear with each passing day and task, or you can be active. You can be active and consider what you can control, what you can change, and then embrace the things that are out of your control. An interesting thing to kind of consider that just popped in my head is people that hate their jobs, and I've been one. I used to kind of dread cleaning carpets. I don't anymore. I'm grateful that I don't anymore. But I used to kind of dread it. I didn't feel a connection or a drive to be a good carpet cleaner. Now I do, and I'm glad I do. And it contributes to my overall well-being while I work. Doesn't mean I want to be a carpet cleaner. I do not want to be a carpet cleaner for any longer than I have to, but I'm happy going to do it because I'm building something more than just carpet cleaning, right? So if people that hate their job, you can't just, if you don't like your job, part of this is saying you can't, I don't know, you can't just quit your job. You can't just leave because you still got responsibilities. You got to be responsible for your life. Responsible for your family, if you have one, responsible to yourself at the very least, to keep a roof over your head, to keep the power on, to pay the internet bills, the water bills, whatever, to buy food, to put gas in the tank. But there's a line there's got to be a line to where if what you're doing, what you're doing can be a drag, but you endure it anyway because it doesn't make you it doesn't bring less meaning to your life, or your job, it doesn't, I don't know, or like it doesn't, okay, this is where I'm going to talk about values, I guess, again, because if not every job is perfect. In fact, I don't think any job is perfect because work is work. Work is work. And every Sunday, like I just said, I don't hate cleaning carpets, but every Sunday I kind of dread starting another week because I don't want to I don't want to go clean carpets. I don't want to work. But then Sunday night rolls around, I'm in bed, and I'm committed to getting up and exercise. I really I take Sundays off exercise. I have for the last little while. And Sunday I love just relaxing. But then I'm like, I don't want to go back to exercising. But then I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I feel great when I do it. And I guess, does your job make you feel that way too? Even a little bit? Does it bring any kind of satisfaction to your life? Maybe that's the point. It doesn't have to be, you're not going to have the most prestigious job ever for your whole life. But you have to consider what's in your control. And if there's better options, you should take better options. And you should be looking for better options. But if your job makes you less of a, not less of a person, but brings you down or inhibits your values, you should consider alternatives. You should get out of that field. And one thing that I recall is I've talked about John Dehlin way in the past, who is the founder of Mormon Stories and the Mormon Stories podcast. And he's the guy that hosts those podcast interviews with ex-Mormon and active Mormon not audiences. He hosts podcasts with ex-Mormons and active Mormons to discuss Mormons. Okay, that's it. And then he's talked about his prestigious job with Microsoft, making 6 figures a year, living a comfortable life salary-wise, and left that to do Mormon Stories and cut his income way down. And I don't know what he makes now. He just talks about how big of a paycheck cut that he took to take a job that is so satisfying and meaningful for him. He's engaged in a community and in a world that is satisfying and fulfilling. Where being working as an engineer in Microsoft is maybe it's prestigious and it's lucrative, but it's not satisfying. So who knows? Hey, B Moon, what's up, dude? Good morning. Thanks for that purple heart. So consider, that kind of has to do with the conversation last week with Do Nothing by Celeste Headley. It's not all about money. It's not all about your income, your salary. It's really about your time, how you spend your time. So with pessimists have fear with each passing day. I'm coming back to the book. Activists take each day and task head on. And they take what they can control and do their best, and then accept what they cannot control with ownership, responsibility, resilience, courage, patience, all the good stuff, and all the challenging stuff. It's harder to be resilient and courageous than it is to be passive and lazy, right? Hey, B Moon, feeling this right now. Was never happy in my last job, and now that I have free time, I'm excited to find a new job I will enjoy. That's so good to hear, man. Yeah, it's tough to be in a place that it's tough to be in that position without a job, and you have a lot of things to consider. Like you got your responsibilities that you still have to make ends meet somehow, and but if you feel relief from being out of a job that was dissatisfying, you're making good, appropriate steps towards a better future. So I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, I mean, who knows? I never thought I would be doing podcasts, blogs, TikToks, reading books like this. And I don't make any money for it, but I love doing it. And maybe someday I'll make money from it, and maybe someday I won't. But that's not the point. Like I keep saying, I do it because this brings an immense amount of satisfaction for me, and I love passing wisdom and inspiring other people, whether directly or indirectly. So that makes me that helps me endure my suffering. Oh yeah, that gives deep meaning to my suffering, my minuscule suffering, when I don't want to go to work, or when I don't want to exercise, or when I don't want to read a 20-hour book, and I don't, whatever. I don't want to take 4 hours to make a TikTok. It's not really suffering. It's just kind of boring. It's hard. It's just takes mental focus, but it's very rewarding and satisfying for me. And then for some people, it's not doing that kind of shit. You do it and it's hard and it's still a struggle, but they don't get the same reward or satisfaction from it. So they shouldn't be doing it. That's the message. That's the theme of work. Everyone gets turned on by different shit. You should find the shit that turns you on. All right. So there's like I said, this book was posted or published a few different times, and there was postscript from the 1984 edition. I think I wrote that right. There was a lecture he gave at a university in Berlin or somewhere in Germany. I just wrote Germany. I don't know why I said Berlin. But I took some notes from this lecture. He says that optimism in the face of tragedy allows for this. Remember, we just talked about pessimism, where you have fear with each passing day. But optimism, being optimistic in the face of tragedy, allows for this. It turns suffering into a human achievement or accomplishment, derives from guilt the opportunity to change oneself from the better, for the better, and derives from life's transitoriness, an incentive to take responsible action. Transitoriness definitions, not permanent. Yeah, so like a transient person. Transitoriness. I'll read it again. Optimism in the face of tragedy allows for turning suffering into a human achievement or accomplishment, deriving from guilt the opportunity to change oneself for the better, and deriving from life's transitoriness an incentive to take responsible action. And again, all you can do is take responsibility for your own life. That's all you can do. At the very root of it, that's all you can do. Take responsibility. You cannot force yourself to love, hope, or be optimistic. Yeah, well, I'll finish the thought. Again, happiness cannot be pursued. It must ensue. It's like positive affirmations. I think I've talked about positive affirmations where you maybe you're depressed and you're told, well, go look in the mirror and repeat words that'll make you feel good about yourself. I think someone said that's bullshit because you can't, and for this reason, you can't force yourself to love, hope, or be optimistic. You can't force it. You can fake it, but you can't force it. To feel actual love, hope, optimism, it must be genuine. And I'm not saying how to get there, but the point is you can't force it. When you're in a concentration camp, you can't wake up and look in the mirror and say, "Oh, I'm still worthy and I'm still strong and capable." And I mean, you're getting your ass kicked every single day, and that's putting it lightly. And maybe a little immodestly, but that was the nature. And so you can't force love. You feel love. You are love. You can't force hope or optimism. You have hope, and you are optimistic in the face of suffering. You can't force it. Happiness cannot be pursued. You don't get to love. You don't get to hope or optimism. Those are experienced along the way, through the suffering and through the pleasure, through the good and through the bad. Hope, optimism, love, that's not the end goal. That's what's happening along the way. There are three main avenues. Yeah, okay, so he reiterates, I'll say again, there are three main avenues at which one arrives at. I suck at writing notes. Okay, there are three main avenues where people find meaning in life: doing a work or a deed, experiencing something or encountering someone, and I didn't write the third one. What was it? The third one was by our attitude towards unavoidable suffering. If you cannot remove the cause of your suffering, you can always change your attitude. That's the last note. If you cannot remove the cause of your suffering, you can always change your attitude. And changing your attitude is not the same as forcing love or hope or optimism. Your attitude is, well, how would you define your attitude? It's kind of like your response to the event. And the first example that just popped in my head was being a teenager and being woken up early on a Saturday by my dad and uh, having to go weed the yard and mow the lawn and do all the yard work, right? And it would be me and my brothers and my dad. And we'd all fuss and complain because we're such privileged little brats. And but he was like, "We're doing it. It has to be done." And you can either, I remember him doing this. You can either do it with a good attitude, or you'll have a bad attitude. But either way, you're gonna do it. I'm your dad. I'm just gonna fucking make you do it. You can't go inside. You're out here with us. And sometimes we'd cry, and I just learned it's better to do the yard work with a good attitude. I just feel I mean, it's got to get done, right? So why not just have a good attitude? Why not respond positively to something that in that situation I had no control over? I couldn't go back inside. I had to do the yard work. So I either have a good attitude or I have a shitty attitude. And it's just that lesson, and it's something I haven't thought about in a long time. But that's a pretty powerful lesson. The things that you can't control, like you said earlier, mashed potatoes. You chose to go to school, but and you were committed to it, so you couldn't just quit. So the hardship that you endured, the things that you couldn't back out of, you either did it with a good attitude or you had a shitty attitude. That's what you can control. You can always control your attitude. That's the point. And you're always responsible for yourself. Mentally, physically, emotionally, I have an argument why you can't always be responsible for your emotions, because they are chemical reactions that are subject to external events. You don't control your emotions. You respond to your emotions cognitively, physically. That's my argument. In any case, you can always control your attitude, how you respond. You don't want to pull weeds. It's, I still want to sleep in, and I don't want to go outside and pull weeds, but I have to. So I'm not going to complain, and I'm not going to bitch, and I'm not going to be rude to my dad. I'm not going to be rude to my brothers or my mom or whatever. I'm not going to kick the dog because I don't want to pull weeds. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to have a good attitude. And then it's over. After a few hours, it's over. And then what was all the fussing about anyway? I always had a shitty attitude during a math test, but still had to take them. Yeah. I had a shitty attitude, I was saying earlier, through most of school. And then I actually had a turning point in my very last semester, which is unfortunate. I had a turning point where I took a public speaking course. I took a history class. It was on, what was the class called? It was American World History, I think. And then I took another class that I love, psychology. I took 3 classes. Yeah, the history class with Haley. That's the one. That's exactly the one. Yeah. Those 3 classes changed my attitude towards school because for the first 4 or 5 semesters, before this semester, I just fuck school. I don't know why I'm going. It's expensive. I'm up here with my friends. That's the best part. I don't want to go to class. I don't want to do homework. I don't want to take tests. It sucks. But then that last semester, I said, my grades sucked, and I said, I'm not failing or I'm not getting low grades. I'm going to do well. I'm going to apply myself. I'm going to show up early. I'm going to dedicate time each week to study hall. And I went to the library and studied. And I just did responsible education shit. I read outside of class. I was just responsible, right? And I loved that last semester far more than all of the other ones. And the public speaking course, especially, that was probably that one. That class, the engagement in that class, changed my attitude. The engagement I had with the professor in the history class changed my attitude towards professors and whatnot. And then my application to studying outside of class. Oh no, it wasn't psychology. I did love the psychology class, but it was statistics. The application I took to outside study from statistics changed how I can learn new shit. I learned on my mission that I can study really hard, and then I abandoned it when I came home, or at least I didn't apply it to my college experience. I learned very, very precise. Well, not precisely. I learned how to study and consume information, and then how to process it and teach it regurgitate it on my mission by reading scriptures and conference talks and all of it. And then I abandoned it. And then in that statistics class, I was like, I'm not going to fail this class. I'm going to do really well. Plus, I really like math, unlike Habe Moon, unfortunately. But I loved math. In fact, I'm way overdue, but I'm going to just keep talking for a second. I had not taken a math class for several semesters, and I had to, you have to take a math placement test if you don't take math long enough. And I just took it on a whim. And I was in like algebra 1. But I needed to take this statistics class to meet a credit or something. So I had to study for the math placement test, so this was part of my commitment to relearning and learning information, and then applying it to the course. And I aced the class. I got an A in the class. I was really proud of that engagement. I left. I didn't go back to school because I was fortunate where that carpet cleaning took off the way it did, and I just went full-time carpet cleaning. But I think at some point I'll probably go back with some intention to get a degree in whatever way I think is applicable, or some kind of education, because I think education is valuable. That's why I'm doing these books. That's why I do the podcast. I do the writing. I do all this shit because because there's so much information to consume, and I think you're complacent if you stop learning, or if you stop reading and studying. So I just enjoy it. I enjoy the wisdom that comes from these smart people, and I need it for myself anyway. Mashed potatoes. I always hated math and took 1050 senior year of high school to never have to take math again. Yeah. Then I chose a career that is like 90% math. Yeah, that's the last math class I took, and we took it together, and that was the same reason I didn't. Yeah, because I just didn't have a course for school. For an education. So I took that math class with you, and I passed. I didn't do great, but then 4 years later, 5 or 4 semesters, 5, whatever, when I needed to take this statistics class, I had to do that. I had to restart my math education. So I'm glad that I'm sure you probably went through a similar thing. Maybe you don't love math, but you had to get back into it. When you talk about your job with the GPS calculations and shit, it's insane how accurate the math in that is crazy to me. 1 hour, 42 minutes, 27 seconds. I'm going over. I don't want to keep these episodes longer than an hour, but I love these episodes. So hopefully you understand. If you stuck with me through this whole time, I think the lessons from this book are probably the most valuable from all of the books that I've read. But, I want to keep it concise. I like to keep it to an hour. I think that's the sweet spot for most people with listeners. Oh, I love math now. Yeah. Well, you found math that applies to a job that you like, that you find sad. Yeah. Because you're not doing geometry. No, you actually are probably only doing geometry. What kind of math do you do as a surveyor? I loved statistics. I liked statistical probability and shit. I loved that class. In fact, I was excited to do more math until carpet cleaning took off. Anyway, so it is what it is. I love everything that I talked about in this book. I think has immense value, and I hope that you find that too. I hope you'll go read the book if you haven't read the book. And it will humble you in your circumstances in life. I think I read it it was kind of a coincidence with the war happening in Ukraine, but direct meaning. I can consider my life when there is active suffering and oppression in the world. Trigonometry, curves, and statistics. Oh, trig. Yes, I never took trig. Curves. That's all. Calculator. That's TI-89 shit. I remember doing curves and statistics. Yeah, when I took that statistics class was like 3 years ago. So read the book. The book was good. The book was amazing. Very humbling. I wrote a little bit about suffering on last week on Wednesday, I think. You can check that out on my blog, CadenKellysBlog.wordpress.com, or on Substack, cadenkelly.substack. I don't think that's right. I actually think it's substack.com/cadenkelly. So check those out there. I'm going to be posting a TikTok here this week on this book and maybe another one from another book. I'm just at least one book a week for TikTok, one blog a week, one podcast a week. Because I'm practicing music for my summer concerts, and then I gotta stay fresh for that. I got music to write. I got music to learn. I got life. I got life to enjoy. I'm fortunate that I create time to do all the things that I love: exercise, books, podcasts, writing, TikToks, music, and video games. So I'm very fortunate, and I'm glad that we have wise people that can share their theories in books like this in logotherapy and logo. I don't know how you say it, logo or logo. And then anyway, so thanks for showing up. You can find all my shit, cadenkellysblog.wordpress.com. It has links to everything. Or you can vor.red. Who are you, Nova Curon? Sorry, I don't know what you're saying. So you can find all my shit there, or you can also find me on my socials in the video. If you're on the video, you can see my YouTube name. Wow, it's reversed. My YouTube name, Instagram name, Twitter name. Actually, my Instagram name changed to Cadence Podcast. I should change that. So anyway, thanks for showing up, you boys. Thanks for tuning in. Your comments, those were good comments. I love your comments. And go do something challenging this week. Again, you find meaning in life by embracing the suffering, challenging yourself, and being resilient and being responsible. Be responsible, and you'll have purpose and meaning, and you'll be happier for it. All right? Take care of yourself. Have a good one. Go read a book. We'll see you next week.
They